Welcome to Ghana Promise. We express economics, global health, science, and social thoughts. We comment on issues that affect the life of the ordinary person. We are apolitical and nonpartisan. We say what we see fit in the best light we see fit. It may seem to you we are taking sides. No. We don't have that as our goal. And now, we welcome the host, Dr. Gadja, spelled capital G, E, T, capital J, A, H. This is Dr. Gadja, an economist, computer scientist, medical doctor, and global health PhD epidemiologist. I do this as a calling to help Ghana chart a course for greatness and, in the process, help Africa along the way. There are many issues we'll be discussing on this platform, and we welcome your comments, rebukes, and questions. Today's topic. This is Dr. Gadja. The other time we were talking about the President of Ghana's speech, President Akufo-Addo, and we continue with trying to tackle the actual problem that is facing Ghana. We will treat it like a patient that has come to the emergency room, and so we're going to triage the country as a medical doctor and see what are the possible remedies to salvage the situation. We'll first tell you about what the patient thinks is ailing him or her, and then what we will think is ailing the patient based on our diagnosis of the problem. So our topic today is, what is the problem facing Ghana now? Not tomorrow, now. We listened to an interview by the former president of Ghana, Mr. Mahama, on Voice of America about a couple of weeks ago, trying to address the same problem. And in the interview, and I quote, he said, paraphrasing though, he said, deficit financing, he mentioned two problems. Deficit financing, basically saying that the economy, or the Ghanaian economy, has spent more than they actually receive in terms of revenue. Hence, the only way to finance that kind of thing is to borrow, which has led to enormous borrowing by the Ghanaian government. The second problem he identified was scarce foreign exchange availability. Basically, there is no liquidity of foreign exchange currency. Precisely the US dollar. The US dollar has been the major currency that Ghana keeps as a reserve currency. These were the two problems that Mr. Mahama, and these same problems are the problems that were identified by the president in his speech. So here, Ghana as a patient thinks, this is my problem. Now we'll try to look at it, and based on our diagnosis of the patient Ghana, present to you what we think really the problem is. And try to tackle the problem as we see fit. The reality on the ground in Ghana, on the streets of Ghana, is rampant increases in the general prices of goods and services. Short economists call it inflation. Prices are increasing so fast, at times it's very hard to even take record of. That's, if you look at it, there is prices that are increasing on every petroleum product. Transportation, prices increasing. Almost every product and service in Ghana has seen price increases very sporadic, basically very quickly in these few weeks. Now we admit or we agree to the premise that the problem has started a little prior to COVID. COVID made it worse, and then the war in Ukraine jumped onto it, destabilizing economies all over the world, and so on and so forth. However, we cannot hide behind those problems and not try to present a solution for country Ghana. And in some cases, maybe some other African countries might find some ability to use some of the suggestions we gave. Now, with all these problems going on as a patient, you realize that there is discomfort, there is instability, spirits are low, everything is not going on right. Nothing is going on well with this patient. So let's find out what we can do to stop the bleeding at least, or stabilize the situation as it were with Ghana. Now, if you take Ghana as a whole, the first thing that any country facing economic pressures like this should do is to take a stock of what really is my most critical product or service, if there's a critical service in that regard. What is my most critical product? When you look at the Ghana economy, you can be able to identify a few, and maybe a major one. You see, because the patient in that situation will need energy to be able to do any activity. And even when you are given other medications and there's no energy, it's going to be difficult for those medications to work. So we will look at what is the energy, the blood of the Ghana economy. And that will be the problem we tackle first. So as a country, you identify your major commodity or product. And for Ghana's economy, we will say petroleum or petrol. The rampant increases, notwithstanding the war and COVID, started only after we saw much quicker increases in prices of petroleum products in Ghana. So we identify petroleum as the base product of the Ghana economy. That is the lifeline, that is the blood in the patient. Ghana cannot act without energy, just as no patient can act without energy. So we focus on energy as the problem, although we recognize other problems also, such as forex rate increases or foreign exchange increases, basically the price of foreign exchange, which is rates, increases. Increasing the price of our imports. The question is, why do we need imports? We need imports because we have acquired taste for things that are not produced locally in Ghana, and so we need imports. And to buy these imports, we need to pay for them in the currency that is acceptable by most countries, which is the dollar, or at least pay in the currency of the producing country. So the increase in the dollar should not have affected domestic prices, because it is only needed for the purchasing of things that we do not produce locally in Ghana. Except for the fact that the oil prices are expressed in dollar denomination, in dollar currencies. So a double impact of lack of forex liquidity and all the other problems begins to hit the oil, which is also short on supply. We just saw OPEC reduce supply by some magnitude, significant, to increase the prices of petroleum products. Coupled with that are increases in the rates of interest by the Fed in the US, the producers of the dollar currency. So all these things will definitely lead to a shrinkage of dollar available for everybody, and in that much including Ghana. If Ghana is not able to have major control of dollar, definitely they will suffer lack of dollar. So some of the problem is imported, and mainly in terms of the petroleum, because the prices of petroleum is by the world market. It's not something that Ghana determines, and we purchase it with dollar. Ghana is an oil producing country if you come to think about it. But the question is how much oil remains in Ghana after it's been drilled or taken out of the soil. Probably not sufficient, not enough. We are interested in going after the dollar instead of keeping the product. And we have a very poor negotiated deal for our oil. I hear that we take about 5% as royalty. You wonder whether the people negotiating the oil deals are negotiating for themselves or for the country. That is the reality of what Ghana faces as a patient. Deals that have been negotiated for Ghana are not working in the best interest of Ghana. Which is like a patient. The food he's been eating, the kind of activities he's been engaging are not helping him or her. And so we have to look at it, find a way to fine-tune those things later in the future, because that will be what he takes home to go and work on. But right now, our focus will have to be on stabilizing the patient, Ghana. So, a patient that is in an emergency, you don't leave until he is or she is stabilized. You don't leave that patient until the patient is stabilized. That is what at times leads to emergency doctors staying in and working beyond their hours. Because you have to be modulating and changing remedies, observing to see how efficacious they are or not, and doing all that until the patient is stabilized. So I call on the government of Ghana to continue to show hands-on work to try to change the situation in Ghana by changing minds, by changing perspectives, by trying to do what is needed at every juncture, changing policies, implementing them, observing how they play. So they have to be coming, the president or anybody that he thinks he can designate, to the homes of Ghanaians to encourage them every day to do the heavy lifting, such that the perception about the Ghanaian economy's doldrums will be eliminated. If you are hands-on, the patient himself begins to believe, I'm going to survive this emergent situation. So Ghana has to go into implementing policies that address the problems directly. When you look at the uh, chief complaint, as a medical situation, the chief complaint that is given by both the previous president and the current president, and their thought as a solution, you realize that they have not really looked at their past in terms of what they've been doing. So they prescribe, or they say they need the same medications that they have been taking for a long time that had not worked. Ghana has been doing this thing over and over and over again. If you go back to the late 70s and the 80s, where there were coups and all that, it was the same situation. And the remedies they prescribed were the same. But it did not help the country go forward enough. Rather, it shrunk the country, shrunk our GDP, and took a long time of struggle to make any forward movement as a nation. We should not repeat the same old medications, the same old remedies that did not work. We have to go inward, out of the box, think as a people. Maybe with a few help from here and there to solve the problem. Mahama said he has suggested going to the IMF, to the government, current government, long ago. Yes, going to the IMF is good in the moment, but it's not a policy that we can continue to follow, because just like any person, if you are in difficulty and you need money, you go to the bank to take a loan. But you have to remember, whilst you take the loan, your credit rating is affected. So you have to think in terms of, what can I do with a loan that will make me pay back the loan very quickly with the interest and get my credit rating better up, whereby I will not have to go for loan again, but will be able to survive on my own rating, said that my desire for a loan will come with very low rates or interest rates. So I am not suffering the same consequence all over again. So although IMF is a situation that you can use as a stop-gap policy or a stop-gap fix, it cannot be something we continue to do in the long run. And that is the purpose for IMF. It is for temporal, short-term difficulties of nations. And we should try to make use of the IMF exactly as it is meant to be. But one thing I want is that we should not repeat the mistakes of old, whereby IMF comes and gives money. Instead of using the money to do the projects that are needed, we use them on wasteful things. We use them on things that do not give profit or return in the long run. Hence, our deficit positions is worse off than we began with the IMF. That leads to long tenors of pressure on the domestic economy and mobilization of resources for development. Hence, during the Rawlings era, Ghana was with the IMF for a very long time. It wasn't IMF's intention. Today, even according to the president, Mahama, former president, he said the IMF today does not ask you where to cut, because the IMF definitely is a profit-making institution and will want to receive some interest for what they had given you. And to assure that, they want you to reduce your expenditure so you'll be able to pay back the loan they had given you, and make some suggestions for you as to how to balance your economy
going forward. But IMF's policies, because of the way it's set up, are austere policies, basically, to squeeze you. So you cannot continue the squeeze like that into the long. So Ghana has to be ready to tell IMF to give them the ability to invest in their future. Basically, to invest in things that will bring returns, sure returns in future. And these things can be identified across boards. Changes that needs to be done in the banking sector, the agro sector, the education sector, things that we can know. And with IMF support can be able to get even donors and even long-term interest-bearing loans to put into these areas that we know will definitely bring us returns and make profit to be able to pay back the debts that we will be owing as a result. To solve this problem head on, I will be suggesting a few remedies as the attending physician on this matter. The issue we have is prices going up, inflation. Now, we all know that the prices of goods and services are determined by the demand and supply of those products or services in the market. Now, when you want to focus on the demand side of that which causes price to rise, you will want to be reducing aggregate demand. That is making available to the population less and less resources, basically money, to be able to demand the goods and services that are available in the country. Now, our solution is going to be people focused. Like I said in the beginning, we want to focus on the ordinary person. That kind of a measure, looking at reducing aggregate demand in a situation where the patient, where the population is already suffering, is going to be a painful event. People are not able to afford what to eat. Here, we want to take away the money they have again, which is a double dip. It's just like a patient who needs an infusion of blood still being asked to donate blood. That is a very difficult one. Most economies will suggest that to you, that reduce aggregate demand. So if there's not enough money to buy the goods and services on the market, the price will come down. However, we still know as economists that prices are sticky coming down. And beyond that, if the cost of the product is said that is beyond the price that you want it to come down, it will never come down. The seller will rather choose to close than to bring those prices down. And that probably might be the case of Ghana. I go to buy a product from a distributor, say milk, at 5 cedis. And I'm selling it for 6 cedis. But there's nobody buying. Said that I will want to sell the milk at 3 cedis and take a loss. No sensible, rational trader will do that. Unless they are in difficulty, said that they need money to buy something else. But even if they do that, that means they are going towards closing their business. The best is to break even for them. They get the same amount, they can go pick it up again and continue to be in business until the situation is fixed. And that is more prudent. So I don't suggest austere measures. I don't suggest measures that reduce aggregate demand for the problem that Ghana is in, because the people will suffer too much. The people will be in uproar. My suggestion is to try to increase supply, said that prices will fall. Why do I suggest that? Because that does not adversely impact individuals. My suggestion is that Ghana directly takes steps to increase the supply of petroleum products. That is one. And the president said they were looking for other ways to find oil or petrol so that the supply can be increased. That is good. But that will not solve the problem immediately. Another drastic measure, or one of the drastic measures that I propose, is that Ghana immediately takes steps to subsidize petroleum products in the country by 50% and then begin to negotiate with stakeholders in the petrol industry to see where they can cut costs, where they can take some of the burden or reduce it. What really is causing the price to be going up so high? Is it only the lack of foreign exchange that the price has gone so high because you have to change the next city for the dollar to buy again? Is it just lack of supply of petroleum? Or there are other bottlenecks in the industry that is causing this problem? But the main target is for government to subsidize petroleum products. And they have to find the money, if it's from IMF or wherever, to subsidize the petroleum products for the long haul. The hope is that as petroleum products are subsidized, economic activity will still continue to be going on and booming and doing better. With increased economic activity, there should be increased revenue for government if tax mobilization is being done correctly. If all that is working well, in the not too long run, the government should have enough to be able to recoup the subsidies that it has given to the petroleum industry. After all, they've been charging taxes for all this while. Some of those taxes that have been collected could be used to help the petroleum industry and subsidize it by 50%. A drastic subsidization of petrol like that will force every other industry to reduce their prices, and the expectation is well over 50%, because it is a chain. If you reduce by 50, the other one should be more, because the effect as it goes round should be greater from a little ripple. You know, you have a ripple in water, the effect is greater. I mean, I can, in economic terms, it's a different ball game to explain it. It might be more detailed, but just suffice it that that is what I'm trying to say. So the ripples get bigger, and the 50% reduction in that product on the market, or as Ghana buys petrol, or the Ghanaian buy petrol, will go a long way and reduce all prices. But the government has to know that as it is doing that, there are windfalls that is being made, basically massive profit made by industry and other players in the economy. So the government has to have that as a focus. And so the government must begin to find ways to put policies in place to be able to control those windfalls, such that there should be no leakage of dollar in the system overseas. Even countries like China, when you want to take your money overseas, you lose about 60% of the value. We have to begin to put some policies whereby you cannot just take all the money away. If we do not want to do it like the Chinese way, take 60% of your money, we can put in place policies that slow down the rate at which you can take money outside Ghana, so that some of the dollars that come in can remain. Most of the dollars that come in from people that visit Ghana expatriates. That is the truth of it. And people remit in Ghana. That is the truth of it. To think that direct foreign investment to some extent brings dollar to Ghana, it's a lie. It doesn't happen. You know, we've looked at it. It's not significant. Most people claim to be investors come to Ghana and take the loan from Ghana or get Ghana to back their loan like it happened with the Ghana Airways under Kufuor's regime. So what we have to do is make sure that we close down on the loopholes that leak foreign exchange in the country. Also, the government has to negotiate or try to engage with all other stakeholders. The president said he's been doing that with market women and all those organizations. We have to understand that they have entered into a kind of monopoly and they control things as they were. There should be ways, policies that are laid down for those groups, said that they don't just arbitrarily increase prices. There should be ways to do it. Just the drastic reduction of petrol by 50% will do a lot to reduce prices across board in Ghana. The government can do it in different ways. It can be an IOU to gas stations or petroleum suppliers. It can be a direct subsidy to the industry that they will pay later on. There are different ways to do this. But if that is done, 3/4 of the problem that Ghana is facing will be stopped if we put in place the other measures that should go with a policy like that. Some of the things that I'll suggest on the other side is to establish institutions such as the Institute of Consumer Protection Services or Affairs, Institute of Trade and Taxes to review the reduction in price of goods and services across the country. Also try to take down, these are other policies that should go with it. Try to reduce tariffs or review tariffs and duties at the ports of entry so that prices of imports can be cheaper, leading to competition of imports on the Ghanaian market, which may spare local producers seeing what can be done to maybe venture into that. Banks, government can direct banks into particular investment into companies that will bring more return in the future. These and others, there's a lot of things that I have here on my paper, but we cannot discuss all of them right now. So I will recap on the most important thing. I suggest the country should go and find ways to subsidize petrol. Drastic by 50%. Find the money. Spare economic activity. And watch the Ghana economy grow. Be able to pay your debt. Pay the interest. Increase your credit rating by getting off IMF and understanding exactly how to increase your reserve assets, not just making lip service to it, but actually increasing your reserve assets, because you have everything to make that happen. You have everything to make that happen. You have all the minerals, you have gold, you have all everything to make it happen. I mean, digging gold and going under the sun, it's not something that is good. Global health or public health wise, it gives shorter lifespan. But if we are doing it, we should not do it to benefit anybody else. Then it benefits our country. Every other country has gold and all those minerals, but they choose not to mine them because of the dangers to their health. So if we choose to mine them, it should be benefiting us and not somebody else. This is an area that we are not being wise in. We've been doing it for long. I remember the vice president had said Why are people complaining about manganese mining if Ghana has been doing this for a long time? My question is, you've been doing it for a long time. What are the results? What are the gains? We have to begin to look at things correctly and define them correctly for the Ghanaian to be able to benefit from their heritage. That's it.